What is up, guys? Today we're going to take a quick look at the PBE and see exactly what Riot are looking to change moving into patch 6.14. Remember, these are not final at all. We still have over a week left for things to be added or taken off, but it gives us a solid idea of what Riot are planning to do and which champions they think need a nerf or a buff. At the very least, I think it might let you start practicing a champion ready for when they get buffed, and you can kind of use that increase in power. But let me know what you think of these changes or who you think needs to be changed in the comments. Now, we're actually going to start with support this time because I genuinely think Leona might actually be 100% busted if these changes go through. In case you didn't see my Korean pick video, by the way, Leona is actually starting to dominate right now anyway, performing really well in 6.13. In my opinion, this is probably going to make it worse actually. Like, on the surface, it looks like nothing much, but her ultimate was recently tweaked again. So the changes so far, right? Her passive damage is slightly down. You're going to feel it a little bit more late game. Your Q cooldown is actually down by 2 seconds, but the damage is down especially later as well. Your W damage is also down later, kind of a trend here actually, but your E root duration is doubled to 0.5. So far, it's kind of actually seeming like she's getting a nerf, right? All of her base damage is down a little bit, but this is kind of actually why, kind of to balance her new ultimate. So the base damage is down, but there's a new thing attached to it now. So Leona's next 3, 4, or 5 attacks, depending on rank, gain 100 range and deal bonus magic damage on hit. That makes up for the base damage nerfs in the rest of her kit, but to make things worse, her auto attacks now apply Leona's passive. So basically, you're gonna you apply the passive damage anyway. Now she whacks them, and the AD can proc the passive again and again and again. The extra range and stuff lasts for 5 seconds, by the way. If you don't use it, it disappears, but that's actually a pretty decent like buff to her, I think. To me, that is absolutely insane. Once you hit 6, it is so much damage now. And just to be clear though, that wasn't actually there to start with. When it went like first onto the PBE, the ult attacks didn't apply her passive, so it might be changed back again, but if it stays like this, then that is a crazy change. So that was kind of like a mini rework to Leona's ult and stuff, right? But SONA is getting some major changes, very different from last time as well. She was on the PBE. Actually, she's had 4 entire different kits on the PBE so far, but this is the one that has lasted the longest time, so it's a good guess that she'll stay similar to this. There are a lot of changes, so I'm going to try and simplify them down a little bit, just kind of like the general stuff. So the aura ranges are now 400 from 350, and your passive power core, the damage is up, and using it with W, so the heal now reduces their damage by 25% and it shrinks them. It's pretty funny actually. The Q damage active is down, but the W base heal and shield are up. The ratio is increased with both of them, but it doesn't heal based on missing health anymore. The E aura active now completely different, so it grants movement speed for SONA for 7 seconds out of combat or until you're hit. The aura, like the AoE stuff for your allies, is different, so the duration is up to 3 seconds and gives 10% move speed. Finally, your ultimate reduces the cooldown of your Q, W, and E auras by 20, 30, and 40% rather than actually increasing their damage or what they do. So the big thing is basically your AP ratios are up on everything. You're actually rewarded quite a lot for building AP. We could even see a mid lane SONA now, and it could actually work really well. Your E now makes you a roaming god. Basically, you activate this, and the next second you're going to be in mid lane. Kind of ridiculous. And your W is more focused around healing. Like, you have a better W and a worse Q. The R change also means in team fights you'll be spamming auras 24/7. That's kind of how you play her now, what you're good for. You're keeping the right aura up at the right time, but you have more flexibility in changing between the two. Especially with the new healing items actually and how good they are. Like, this could be an insane change for her. Ardent Sensor, Crucible with wind speakers already makes healers really good. Now her W is stronger than before and can be used a lot more in team fights. Now let's move on to the jungle quickly. So Rek'Sai is getting some very small changes. The cooldown for updates on your tremor sense is now doubled to notify every 1.5 seconds. Also, you have to move a short distance before it registers you as changing the direction you're facing, and that's kind of a little buff actually, like a little quality of life change. I reckon this is way more aimed at competitive. Like, he's a powerhouse in the LCS because of his global pressure, the gank pressure, and objective control. This is a weird change though, to be honest, but I think it's like supposed to make him a bit less safe in the jungle. He can't track people as well now. So Lee Sin is the bigger jungle change though. Oh boy, what a day we're seeing when actually Lee Sin is getting a buff and not a nerf. Like, that doesn't happen. I'm not sure what to make of this, to be honest, because W shields for more now, extra 80 actually at rank 5, which is pretty decent because it's on 80 on you and 80 on the ally, but normally you max this last. It's like the same rank 1. You're probably not even going to make much of a difference. The second reason I think this might be really weird is the shield component of it only applies when you use it to an allied champion, right? If you use this to a ward hop or to a minion, then you aren't going to get this at all anyway. The playstyle that actually works in season 6 so far is basically like an assassin kind of Lee. Like, you build damage and you kill things, especially kicking the enemy tank into a carry does like over half of their health after the change a while ago. This is probably the most useless change in my opinion. It's like a bait. It's like, oh look, we buffed Lee, but probably in the worst way. Unless you actually play him as a pure jungler protecting your team and you max second and you build tank, which maybe some of you do. I don't think that's that optimal, but that's the only way you're going to get a buff out of this. So before we go into more champion changes, Cloud Drake is actually actually getting a buff, so now, you know, it's like slightly less crap than before. To be fair, it's now 25, 50, 75, so increases by 25 instead of 15 per dragon you actually get. 50 extra movement speed is pretty decent, and it can get you away from someone who's chasing you, I guess. I still think it's honestly like the worst out of all of the dragons, but it's probably worth taking at least now. Honestly, the design of these dragons is just super weird. Like, movement speed as a stat is not worth as much as damage, it's not worth as much as health or mana regen or taking objectives easier. So unless they make it overpowered and run around like a Sonic or something, I don't think we'll ever see this being top tier, at least not in ranked for us. Anyway, let's go to the mid lane next. There are 4 champions coming up for changes on this PBE patch, and Talia is the first one. Honestly, I feel sorry for her. Like, she just started to get played more and do pretty well, and she's already getting a nerf. I guess she does kind of need one, really. She's very strong, especially at higher ranks, but nerfing her is only going to make her worse at lower ranks. Even though on the surface these technically shouldn't be good for her because it's a reduction in damage, Riot seem to think actually she'll get even stronger after these changes. Super weird, but they must know something from their internal testing that we don't. Anyway, the changes aren't obvious on the PBE, but I looked up a Riot post from a designer who explained it a little bit more. Basically, her entire playstyle is kind of revolving around flipping them into your minefield at the moment, which is fine, but it lacks counterplay and it's kind of a very linear way to play. Like, you only really have one option. The first change is to her E, so now after the first like mine, the mines do 12% less damage, so we're going to be doing a little bit less if they walk over more than one. The second thing is your W, how that actually, like, the flip cast type works. So it's been tested in 2 different ways, similar to a Victor Laser or a Rumble Ultimate, and how it is now, but with no lockout from the cast. Like, once you choose a direction, you're not locked in anymore. So on the surface, E is supposed to do less, right? W now casts different, not really a big deal, I guess. Well, actually, Riot have specifically said, I'm going to show you the quote on the screen, with the increased DPS from the removal of the lockout, we'll likely have to nerf her in other ways to keep her from going out of control. I'm sure part of the way they're actually changing her a little bit is the actual E change, but this might be a good patch to milk some freeload from Talia, especially if Riot are actually saying they think she's way too strong. The other mid changes are a little bit smaller, but will make a kind of a bit of a difference, I guess. Malzahar is probably the smallest. His move speed is down by 5 and attack range is down by 50 to 500. 500 isn't that bad, honestly. Still, like, it's a decent attack range, I guess, but this is kind of making him a little less safe in lane. This is normally what Riot do, by the way, before they hit a champion harder. They make a small change, they see how much of an effect it has to judge actually how strong the champion is. As sad as it is, I'd expect Malzahar to get hit pretty hard in the next few patches. Normally this is the Riot formula. They change something kind of small and then they go into a bigger change. Anyway, so as these changes are slightly bigger, the vision of your soldiers is down a bit to match your attack range. Basically, it's like 350 now instead of 575 according to Riot. Also, the damage per level on your soldiers has been readjusted a little bit too. So basically it starts out the same, but on live now increases by 5 per level. On the PBE, it's going to increase by 2 to start with per level, then 3 at level 6, 10 at level 11, and 15 after that. The idea is that the soldier damage is now a softer increase to start with, so it slowly ramps up, but ends up the same at level 18. It is going to be a reduction in damage before level 18, though. At every single level, it's slightly lower than what it used to be. The thing is, you're probably not going to feel this too much, but at the same time, there are a lot of really good mid laners out there right now. This kind of might just make them even stronger versus him and give him a few more issues. At least we do know, though, Azir is on Riot's radar for being a bit too strong. If this isn't enough, we'll likely see some more changes. Now, Lux is the last mid lane change on the PBE at the moment, so her key base damage is lowered by 10 at each rank, so not really a big deal, and her passive damage is increased by 2 per level. This is kind of what I call a Riot special, a placebo change designed to literally just make you play the champion more. This is them basically saying, hey, we think Lux is actually better than you do right now. Here are some changes to make you think about her and to test her out again. Riot are not sneaky with what they do. They do this all the time. I personally love Lux, but I don't think she's amazing in this meta anyway. She just doesn't fit as much. She's fine, don't get me wrong, but there are better options I think you can play. So last up are the top laners. These are minor changes on the surface, but again, kind of placebo in a way. The reason I'm even mentioning these is because it's really useful to know that Riot are leaning towards buffing weaker top laners rather than nerfing the top tier ones. So Fiora is first. The Q bonus ratio is up, massively increased to rank 1, but the same at rank 5. Probably not actually going to do a whole ton, except maybe make her lane a little bit better in the early first levels. Honestly, I don't particularly see the point of this. You max your Q first normally, so by the time you get any AD items, the ratio will basically be the same. It is a bonus AD ratio, not total AD, so it means it uses AD from like items and rooms, not base, not exactly a ton early because you don't even have any items. The last change on the PBE right now is to Poppy, and they're trying to make her more relevant in team fights, it seems, which is kind of a weird approach actually. The passive cooldown is now down early by a few seconds, which is nice I guess, but it works slightly differently, so it's still based on a percentage of your max health, but that increases with levels. It used to be 15% all the time, but now it's going to be 15% level 1, 17.5% at level 7, and 20% at level 13. So it's just better later into the game. The move speed on your W has also been increased by 5 per rank. Not massive, but they're kind of designed to help a little bit, I guess, like get into fights. Poppy is actually okay against carry laners. She's really good against tanks, so she has some decent utility, but she has just been forgotten about recently. Anyway, that wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the little look at 6.14 so far, and let me know what you think of all of these changes. Remember to share, like, and subscribe, but for now, let's go to the robots.